see this? Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay. This guy again.
Hey, John. Second question, a little bit of a follow-up here. You are known for legendary stories, and I think we'd all like to hear the Israel story, if you could, please. Thanks.
Israel story.
Israel? Oh, yeah. So there was quite a few Israel stories. So I got a job in Israel, and it's me and my couple of friends. We go out there, and as we go to the El Al, the Israeli the airline, there's like this is like 1989, right? So the security was crazy in London airport, and everyone's going there. We were told, and I was all suspicious, like, oh, just tell them you're going on vacation. So we go up to like the immigration and security and stuff like that, and all these Israelis are like, yeah, we know you're going to work in a legal casino. We know this. Stop lying to us. And we're like, no, we're not. So, but as obviously we all were. So we fly into Jerusalem. They hire this beat up like coach, and we drive from Jerusalem all the way down like to the Red Sea in Eilat, down the bottom. And then like by this point, we had one like tape. And it was just played constantly for the whole like 7-8 hours we were on this bus, right? It was terrible. Anyway, so we pull into Eilat, and the bus pulls up to this it's like a street of like youth hostels, right? And really sketchy looking youth hostels. So we're like, well, what's going on here? So we were there, and it's like 5 o'clock in the morning. So we look, and these big burly Israeli guys get off the bus. They walk into this youth hostel, and all of a sudden, all these people come out with like sleeping bags and possessions. They just took it over. It was crazy. They just took it over and kicked everybody out. So we're like, what the hell? So then we moved into this hostel, right? And this was where the casino would live, in this hostel. And every day we'd have to go, and we get up in the morning. We get a taxi down to the dock at the port. And if we were on the early shift, and the ship would sail, and it would sail out into kind of international waters. And it was this little like gambling ship. And players would get a speedboat from the dock, from like further down the road, close to the border. This speedboat, this big Boston whaler, from the side of the port, or the side of the road, really, to the ship, and he would ferry him back and forth. And it was crazy. And there's one time, so I'm on a night shift, so I'm there. We get a taxi to this literally like neon sign on the side of the road, and there was a Boston whaler on the side. So I get on it, and we're going to work, and we used to have to wear tuxedos, right? So I'm there. I got my jacket off. So I'm on we're on his hostel regular, and it's really bumpy and all over the place. And all of a sudden, I was like, what the heck's that? And I looked down, it's a fish. I got hit by a fish. I was like, oh my God, what's that? And I swear to God, it was a fish about that big, and it's flapping on the floor like that. And I was like, oh my God. And literally, this was exactly what this Israeli boat driver did. He went, put it down, walked over, and went, Choom! Just stood on his head, smashed his head. The guts went everywhere, and then he just threw it off. And I was like, oh, that's gross. So then we just carried on to the ship. I get off. The ship had really bad air conditioning, so I had to deal the rest of the night smelling of fish. And all the players were like, what's that smell? What's that smell? And I was like, if it's fish, it's me. And I'd have to tell them the story about how I got hit by a fish, and I smelled fish, and I was dealing a fish. Man, Israel was, there's a ton more stories, but that was one I remember off the top of my head.
This is a question from one of your fans.
Hi, John. You and I have spent a lot of time on the craps table together. In fact, you were the one that taught me the game. And I guess the one burning question I have in my mind for you right now is, what's your favorite recipe for Sunday night dinner at the moment?
Did he just ask me what's my favorite recipe?
Yes.
It was one of the things that I loved working with Arden. At the time, I think Arden used to work weekends. And, he got to a point where he could deal a game and have a conversation, interact with everyone else, and he was that good. And we would spend most of the time talking about recipes and food and like what we're going to eat. And it was fun. And we would catch up into the following week. We're like, hey, well, what did you make last week? And what did I make last week? And so to answer this question, right now I'm kind of obsessed with small kitchen appliances. No idea why. So I got lots of them. So I just got an Instant Pot, and I'm using that, and the things that go in an Instant Pot. And yeah, so I don't know. I'm obsessed with weird cooking shit, I suppose.
What do you miss the most about the casino industry?
like I've told a lot of people, even after I've left the casinos, I mean, I've left now 15 years. The best times I've ever had in any job was probably connected with the on a craps table with the people I really enjoyed working with. Like the camaraderie, the fun times. The players would join in too, and they realized it was fun, and it'd be like 4 of you, like 4 dealers, maybe a couple of bossmen, and having fun with. So I really missed that. Like really fun times with really fun people. The other games I've like, black, I'm like, yeah, whatever. But I had some really great times dealing craps, like crazy things. I'm looking back, like if I come on again, I can tell you about some of the crazy stories like we did in Britain, like on the table, which nowadays you'd be like, what? Yeah. So yeah, that's what I really missed. Like like meeting all the different guys that I've worked with over the years, the really good times we had there, just the sharing of ideas and just a lot of the fun. Right? It was, and I don't think, in all honesty, I've probably had a job like that since. I mean, there's always like, oh, we had fun for like, half an hour the other day on, in work, but it's not like, man, we laughed for 7 hours. It was freaking crazy. You know what I mean? It was at some point you're like, man, we get paid for this, right? So some of the stuff, that's really what I miss the most.
What are you up to now? What can we promote for Jon?
So I left the Palace Casino in 2005, and I left, and eventually I won my way in 2008, working for the financial institution, and people were saying to me, like in the business, were like, man, how can you go from working in a casino to working in basically a bank? And I was like, they're both basically after the same kind of thing. I mean, if you look at it, there's sales and service, the CSRs and the tellers, and then the bankers, and then there's slots and there's a similar kind of thing. And they talk about the similar kind of things. But I said, the one thing banks don't have is they don't give the service the casinos do. I said, if a financial institution ever figures out how to kind of like provide the service that, say, a really good, like the craps tables we had, those kind of like quality bespoke gambling, it was like, man, we know these people so well, we do everything for them. Nobody would move financial institutions ever. You'd have to fight them off with a stick. But really, nobody at this time has figured it out. But so I was like, man, he should be like, I know you've been telling people, I've been now in 12 years now working for the same bank, I guess. And I still, to this day, I'm like, man, you need to copy these people. These guys know how to do it. They're all about the experience and like this experience. It's not about like, approved or denied. It's like, okay, what is this experience? So, yeah, so that's what I do now. And it's weird. And it's because I spent so long in casinos and kind of like the whole experience side of it. And how do you make this really cool experience? Now I'm kind of doing that in the role I have today. Like I work for on the business banking side. So now I'm trying to kind of like do some of the things I was doing there and how can we create a really better experience on the role I'm in today. So I do think that it's, we undervalue some of the skills we learned in casinos when we leave and move somewhere else into a different industry, because we really did a lot of really cool things, which were ahead of a lot of industries.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Is there someone that you did work with that was an A dealer on the ships? Because I never got to work with an A dealer when I was on, but was there someone that you found that was very, I don't know, that deserved the A?
Oh, there was quite a few. I remember there was a guy called Paul Hardy, and he was another one who was like, there's like the Hardys, there's like a big family of them, and Paul he'd been in the business for a long time. He was like a super cool guy, and he was another guy. He was like brilliant on the stick, like really, really good. And I just remember, I mean, like a lot of the guys, it's not so much like, at the end of the day, like people's kind of, like I said, they focus on calls and stuff like that. A lot of times it isn't the calls, because, honestly, we all kind of steal each other's and like, oh, who made that up? Oh, I don't know. But you kind of take a lot of people's calls. Somebody had a different flavor. A lot of them but I mean, but it's just kind of like how you control the game, how you run the game, the pace of the game, how you bring how do you control the players, and how you know what I mean? So that's the things I always would look at. I mean, it's not just like, yeah, he says some pretty cool rhymes, whatever. But I mean, if you couldn't work out the bets, or if you can work them out, well, this guy always does the same press all the time when his center action comes in. If you continually slowing the game down because you haven't adapted to this guy, right? Mm-hmm. So those are the ones that I looked up to. I'm like, yeah, man, he is running the game, right? So that's the ones I was like, look at this guy. He literally is controlling the game from every aspect of it. The calls are just an added extra. Right? I mean, if he's good on stick too, he's great. I mean, like look at like Tony Chen, man, he was super good, right? I mean, super fast hand. He was amazing, right? There was so many really good dealers I dealt with, right? And I'm like yourself too. I mean, you're really good too, right? So there's always so many really there was always so many really good dealers, right? But to be honest, the challenge was, it's like everything, right? Is you get to a point where you want to be good, and then how do you stay consistently good? Because a lot of times you'd be like, nah, I can't be bothered anymore, right? So that for me was always the challenge. Is like, all right, and a lot of dealers as well. I'd be like, oh yeah, well, can they be? Because you just get bored of the game, right? You get to a point where you deal really well, and you're like, yeah, man, I could do this in my sleep. I mean, I remember sometimes saying that, doing that, paying out 60 with my eyes closed. Just as like, okay, can I do it? Right? He's just like, oh, let's see if we can do it, right? And just doing it and stuff like that. But there were some like really great dealers. I mean, but I like those kind of things, right? You know, like how does he run the game? And like, you know, honestly, the boxman for the most part should just sit there and drop money, right? Like, and the really is the dude with the stick is the one who controls the game. And I was like seeing people who were like really cool on the stick.
I'd like the students to hear you actually on the stick, and people will just be blown away.
Do you know, it was weird. I once went to a funny money casino as a volunteer, right? Like there was a charity event and he had a craps table. And I tried to get on stick, but they wouldn't let me. I was like, man, I'm a volunteer. I used to deal. They're like, nope, you can't. I was like, I swear, I said, I won't deal. I said, let me just go on stick. I said, if I'm not good after 10 minutes, you can kick me off and you can. And they're like, nope, can't deal. I was like, all right, fine, no worries. So yeah, they wouldn't let me deal. So, but like I haven't dealt for like 15 years. I've been on a table for 15 years. For me, the biggest thing I think it's you learn it. It's never taught. Is how to like the stick, like how you run the game, how the pace of the game to do, how you know. That was for me that like most people are like, okay, get on it, move the dice, and then you just push, and then try not to knock them over or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. But it's how you, the whole thing about the stick, right? I mean, like how do you pace the game? I mean, like because you look at it when like we'll just go back to in Edmonton, right? I mean, we had the busiest game probably out of all the casinos, right? Because at the time, it was making so much money. It was just crazy, hand over fist, because like we were like, yeah, man, we know exactly what Jay likes, and we take it out, we put it on, we back him up, and it gets to a point where we were taking the gambling decisions like it was, in all honesty, it was making the process automated for the player, right? Yeah. All they needed to do was just enjoy it, you know, like so. All they need to do was buy in and like put the bets up, and the dealers would do everything else, or even the boxman would do, hey man, you forgot this, don't worry. We're like, okay, yeah, and then. Because all you need to do is you just keep them there, right? And that was some of the things that I'm not sure if they do that anymore. Like from what I've seen, it's just so like glacially slow, right? And it's like, and the problem is as well, we were so good, we basically made the players very poor very fast, right? So the challenge is, perhaps it's a complicated game to learn to play for a lot of players, and you burn through, you know, your book of players, right? Because they kind of either they die or they run out of money or they're like, man, I can't play this anymore. I'll take a break. You know what I mean? So you constantly to get fresh blood playing, right? And you have to make it more. And that's the challenge. If you haven't got an exciting game, why would they want to play it, right?